Welcome to The Dirt, where we dig deep into the world of running. I'm Coach Loretta.
And I'm Coach Lindsay. Together, we bring you insights from our experiences as running coaches.
And today we're going to tackle a vital topic for many athletes, aging and its impact on performance. This one is really near and dear to my heart.
We'll discuss physiological changes, injury prevention, nutrition, training adjustments, and the mental aspects of being an aging athlete.
Whether you're a seasoned athlete or just a beginner, we're here for you and we have something for everyone.
Let's slice up and dive in.
All right, here we go. So, Lindsay, I think about this a lot because, I am an aging athlete, definitely. And, I'm in my 50s now, and things, of course, have changed over the years for me. Your experience comes in, more closer to your 30s, but still, we're all aging, right? And things are changing all the time, and we're having to adapt and change what we're doing as far as how we're, training and how we're eating and all of those things. Just we keep learning new things about our bodies.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, I always get people, obviously I'm 34. I get people a lot of times saying, oh my gosh, like you're so young, like wait till you're, whatever their age is. But I try to remind people too, like that's very true. And I'm, grateful for the time that I'm in. But I also have a ton of miles on my body. Like I've been doing this for so long competitively. And most people don't truly start ultra running until probably past my age. So I can definitely relate to the aging athlete, even being 34. I've been running marathons since I was 18 and then been a runner my whole life. So this is a topic that I truly deal with day to day too, and seeing the changes in my body, even at 34.
Absolutely. So I think let's start off with talking about the physiological changes. I
Mm-hmm.
think that we really notice that as females, right? Because we're going through a lot of hormonal changes our entire life. And, we've even moved, I think, the age of perimenopause more to your around 35, right? So it's
Yeah.
things are changing so much. And that's something that I work with a lot with my athletes. I have a lot of athletes that fall in that range of perimenopause and then moving on to menopause. So it's something I've spent a lot of time researching, listening to, Dr. Stacey Sims, and another program that I followed is a nutrition mechanic. Just so much information out there about that, but yet we don't really have any answers of how to like get us through, right?
Right.
But I think one of the things that really strikes me is thinking about, and this is something I talk about to my younger athletes as well, is when we're thinking about our bone density, our highest bone density is at age 30. And then we're
Right.
declining from there, right? And this happens to both men and women. Women seem to decline at a little faster rate because of the hormone difference. And we're thinking about things like osteoporosis, osteopenia, things that are, really starting to become prevalent when we're thinking about losing bone density. And then
Right.
paired with that is the lean muscle mass, right? So again, around age 30, that's the highest muscle mass, and then it starts declining from there. But the good news is there's things that we can do to mitigate that loss. It doesn't mean, it's over for us, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so of course, big on strength training. I'm somebody that can really empathize with my athletes. If you don't enjoy strength training, I'll be honest, I despise it. If I've got, an hour or 30 minutes, I'd rather go running. But I know that it is important, so I'm really making it a priority to make sure that I'm doing my strength training, not just for performance, but for just the sheer fact of everything that you just said, that just for life in general, it is important to make sure our bones are strong and our flexibility is there and that we can handle the load that we're putting on ourselves during training.
Right, absolutely. I think strength training is key to that injury prevention for us,
Mm-hmm.
injury management, and keeping us healthy and longevity in the sport. I think that's what we're
Right.
all here for, is to be able to be healthy, live a healthy, long life, and be able to running until we're 100. So that's going to be the key. So, and the other thing I want to mention before we get into talking a little bit about strength training is another a factor that starts to go down is your VO2 max as we age, right? So the studies have shown keeping the highest VO2 max that you can is going to help you stay with more longevity than if we're like sort of backing off on that and not continuing to work on that.
Absolutely. And I think that that's incredibly important as well. And, a lot of the athletes can kind of get a little discouraged, and even, myself sometimes. But as long as you're putting in the work daily and trying to really combat these just natural factors of life, I think you're doing everything that you can. And it's not about comparing yourself at 50 compared to 20. It's about comparing yourself to yesterday versus today. Like, how can I be better today than I was yesterday? How can I make sure tomorrow is even better than today?
Absolutely. And I think, some of the common injuries that we start hearing about are things like Achilles or bursitis in the hip or arthritis or back pain or knee pain. So many times I hear that, running's going to ruin your knees, or I can't run anymore because of my knees.
Right.
I'm not a believer in that. I feel like, no, if I take care of my body, if I keep myself strong so that when I am running, that I am, strong enough to maintain rather than putting too much impact on my knees,
Absolutely.
stay healthy and strong. That's probably
Absolutely.
one of my cringes when I hear that.
I
Dang,
know, yeah, the knee. I mean, we're also used to hearing, well, how's your knees? Actually, they're great. So
exactly.
don't jinx
Just
me.
fine.
And I do tell people, what you just said, like, as long as you're taking care of your body. And I mean, this even goes back. I remember playing competitive soccer in high school, and, my coach really emphasizing that the quads and the hamstrings need to be equal power so that you're not going to tear an ACL on the field, which is what soccer players do with that quick motion. So this has been drilled into most of our minds for decades, especially if you've played any sort of sport. And for some reason, as we get older, we just kind of accept that our knees are going to go.
Right.
But if you look at sedentary people, their knees go. So you've got to choose to keep them healthy, and in hopes that you will. I mean, there are, of course, accidents that do happen, but as far as just repetitive training, there's a way to keep your body healthy and make sure that it can handle the load that you're giving it, which is where a coach is helpful too, because you can increase slowly, and really make sure that you're doing things correctly.
Absolutely. So I think that when we're thinking about all of these changes that are happening with our body, I mean, we could do a whole episode, I think, right, on all of
Mm-hmm.
the physiological changes that happen to our body. So, but let's talk about, as we move forward and we're thinking about all of the changes that we have and the injuries that may occur, I think we need to start with mobility, right? We need to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we're having good mobility so that then we can move on to good strength training, and then we can stay healthy as humans and as runners.
Right, absolutely. And mobility can be, many things. It can be, for someone just starting out, like a 10-minute stretch, and then we can build into isolated mobility for each, muscle group. But I'm a big fan of there's so many resources on YouTube of people that have really put in a lot of effort into just showing you what to do for beginners. And I myself, again, I'm not a huge fan of stretching just out of enjoyment, but if I've got 10 minutes, I've got time to really make sure that my mobility is there. And then, of course, Dr. Liesel has been a huge tool for our athletes, and taking them specifically and doing an assessment and making sure that, if she'll watch your mobility, and if you've got an ankle issue, she will make sure that you're doing these things specifically to improve your mobility.
Yeah, I think that that's been huge.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you mentioned coaching, getting that screening at the beginning of coaching with our physical therapist, Dr. Liesel, really looking at all of the things that are happening, because as we age, we might have things that aren't as mobile as they used to be, but it doesn't mean they have to stay that way, right? So
Right.
favorite moves, and one that I like to also use is 3D mapping. It was
Mm-hmm.
developed by a physical therapist here in Michigan, Dr. Gary Gray. So it's a really good movement to get you moving in all different planes, to get you prepared before you do a run or before you do strength training, which I think
Right.
is super helpful, because then, as Dr. Liesel says, like, you're not going to have a bunch of icky miles in the beginning, right? You're going to be able to be moving in smoothly as you start out, and it just feels so much better. So I find that athletes that actually do that before their runs are feeling a lot better during runs and are not facing injuries. So I think it is worth it to put in that few minutes at the beginning, 5 minutes.
5 minutes is all it takes. And it's so funny you mentioned that, because again, if you think about when you're a child or a teen, young adult, and you're playing these competitive sports, these coaches are making sure you're warming up properly. And for some reason, as we age, or even as you get out of that fast twitch muscle sprinting, we somehow think that, like, we don't need to do any of this. Like, it's only the track athletes that need to do it. Or, we just kind of warm up in the first 10 miles of an ultra, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Stretching,
but it's
stretching required.
absolutely. And I've noticed it because I started running hundreds when I was 27. And I've even noticed it. And like my friends used to make fun of me with fueling. And like I would literally just lace up and go. And they'd be like, she doesn't even need like she runs off of a pretzel. Like, but but now I'm like, doing all the things and making sure my body is warmed up and making sure I'm fueling properly. So as you age, those things are even more important. But for some reason, we get out of the habit. Maybe it's time, or maybe because it actually hurts more, or
Right.
any of
Well, I think
those.
this time period where we're not in the athletic world of being coached, like
Mm-hmm.
college or in high school, and then all of a sudden now we're just running on our own, and we've just skipped that piece for whatever reason. And
Right.
I think we can get by with it for a while,
Until
and
you.
until you can't, right? So if you don't, if you stick with it, really smart, right? But of
Right.
course, of us have let that go, and now we're trying to bring that back as we're aging, and we're thinking about longevity, because those things are more near in our minds than they were in our 20s.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's so true. Like I think if you've got an hour, you've got to plan on having really 50 minutes for run, 5 for warm up, 5 for cool down. Just
Right.
make it part of your plan, and then it's a non-negotiable. It's just factored in. But
Yep.
if you've only got an hour and your run takes an hour, then of course you're gonna cut off on the warm up and cool down. I mean, I have athletes all the time. Oh, I ran out of time, so I didn't do the cool down. I'm like,
Right.
okay, well, let's maybe cut part of the run, because I do think that the cool down might be more beneficial for the rest of your day and for your week,
Right.
instead of cutting that out completely.
I mean, because recovery is what's going to get us back that next day, right? Not only
Mm-hmm.
mobility recovery, but also, the nutrition piece. So those are the parts that keep us going and keep us, healthy. So I agree. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
quote that really strikes me. Dr. Peter Attia, he has a really great book that he's written, and he's also got a lot of information out on Instagram and different videos. So great guy to look up and follow. But his quote is, "I think of strength training as a form of retirement savings." Like,
Oh, but
let that sink in for a second. A form of retirement savings. He's like, if we wait until our 50s to start saving for retirement,
too late.
too late, right? So why are we waiting for strength training until our 50s?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the beauty of when I'm coaching younger athletes, I love it because I can
Yeah.
help them, find the value of it at a younger age. So hopefully they'll carry that with them through life. Of course, it's not, too late. It's never too late, right? But it's not as ideal as if we started younger and continued doing it, because then we're going to maintain bone density and lean muscle mass, all of those pieces. We're going to help maintain that. But as we get older, now we're going to be working a little bit harder for that. Not that we
Yeah.
can't, but if we could, if I could tell my younger self to continue doing that, that's one thing, that I would be saying.
Me too. I have started pretty young, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, if I would have continued this post high school and just
Yes.
kept going through it, maybe because I do have a chronic Achilles issue, maybe that would be, further at bay. But now it's like you're playing catch up now. So that's a little more difficult. But of course, it's never too late. You just have to make sure to put in the time. And something is better than nothing. That's for sure what I tell my athletes too, is like, oh, I don't have time to do the whole thing, so I just didn't do it. Well, something is better than nothing. Something is always better than nothing. So let's just keep trying, and we will get there.
I love that, because that's exactly the saying I say. Something always better than nothing. I can't get out for
Yeah,
my hour run. Well, what if you can do 10 minutes? What if you can do
yeah,
15 minutes? It's better than nothing.
because that's also banking it. At the end of the week, when you look at your week at a glance, if you just said forget it on every single thing that you came across, then you just wouldn't have anything. But if you can look back at your week and say, okay, I did do this, I did do this, then that's going to ultimately be better in the long run for the aging athlete, but any athlete in general.
For sure. And I think when talking about aging athletes, I think we would be amiss if we didn't mention body composition, especially for women.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things start changing with the difference in hormones, perimenopause, menopause. Their body does not look or feel like it did in their
Right.
20s, early 30s. And so I think strength training can also be one of your best friends. And, during this time, not only is it going to help you maintain that bone density and maintain that lean muscle mass, it will help then with that body composition. So I think that's one reason people start doing it too. But when we're talking about strength training, really to help maintain those things and to mitigate the loss, we have to follow a structured strength training program and
Right.
be logging what we're doing so that we can work towards progressive overload. Because without working towards that progressive overload, we're not going to see the changes or get the benefits that we want.
Right. Absolutely. And Ornery Mule and you and Dr. Lisa work together to put the training plan, the strength training plan for our athletes. And it has been so helpful because you do have a certification in strength or personal training, don't you? Yeah, so and of course working with Dr. Liesel is huge. And so some of us that are a little bit newer to strength training or just more beginners in it really look to the plans that you both have created. And I use them as well. I absolutely love them. And I think it's just incredibly beneficial to work with a coach through Ornery Mule because you are getting that strength training piece. And it is, I think strength training is really having a kind of a societal comeback. Every athlete that I talk to or that's onboarding, they're like, I really want to focus on strength training too. And I don't know if that's because of the aging process or if we're seeing more and more the importance of it as you do age. So that's like kind of the number one thing. And I can piece together a good plan, but having that piece already done for me through what you and Dr. Liesel have done with videos and structured training plans is incredibly helpful. So I know any athlete that we train through Ornery Mule is going to succeed in that. And there's a very lined out blueprint for it, which is amazing.
Right. I completely agree. And I think you're right. Like, even when I started coaching with Ornery Mule just like 3 or 4 years ago, strength
Mm-hmm.
training wasn't as a highlight for athletes, but now
Mm-hmm.
people that are coming in, that's a piece that they want. Either they're already doing it or they want to figure out how to make it work for them. So it's exciting for me that athletes are wanting to do that. And I just see such great improvement in not only their running and in their strength, but their quality of life and their confidence, right? When we feel good about ourselves, when we feel strong, we feel confident. And
Mm-hmm.
I love watching athletes feel that way, about that. One of the things I always talk about with athletes when we start out is like, what are your goals as far as strength training? One of the things that Dr. Liesel and I sort of like to guide athletes towards, and this sounds big at first, right? But it's always baby steps and working towards progressive overload, but being able to deadlift like 100% of your body weight, one rep, and being
Right.
back squat 80 to 100% of your body weight, one rep. And at
Mm-hmm.
first it sounds daunting, but of
Right.
course, as you start working up, you can get there. You can do that. It's just taking time. And those kinds of things are going to help you in the long term, not only with your body composition, that's a huge piece, but being stronger, being injury free.
Mm-hmm.
All of those pieces are such great bits that you can get from it that
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yes. And I do coach some athletes over 50, some even at 60. And I will tell you that because they're so aware of the aging process and they've been lifelong athletes as well, they are the ones that really, really think of the importance of this. They're the ones that work incredibly hard at everything that they do, but especially that strength training piece. And they're the ones that we're always kind of collaborating. Let's see, like, if one has an ankle injury, what can we do specifically for strength that would help prevent this during a race? Or what can we do specifically to strengthen my overall body to make sure that I'm going to be able to hold up for this 100 miles? So the aging athlete is probably one of my favorite groups of training because they're extremely aware of where they are coming from and where that they need to be. And I think that it's just really important to highlight that these specific athletes are doing everything that they can to make sure that their body is holding up. And it's really, really inspiring for me to see as well.
Right, absolutely. And the side benefits that come with, being strong is you start seeing improvements in your your running pace, your
Mm-hmm.
rate,
Right.
you're just getting stronger altogether. And it's incredible to watch people and feel so successful when they have now done all of this strength training and their heart rate's looking so great on runs. Their rate of
Right.
perceived, effort has improved because, they're so strong. It does make a huge difference when people do that.
It makes such a big difference. And I think that sometimes they're not even aware of why they're feeling so good. And then I will point out, like, well, let's look at like the strength you've been doing, like all of these little puzzle pieces that they do, not just the running part, it's the nutrition part, it's the recovery part, it's the strength training. All of that does matter. And then one day they'll just be like, wow, that was easy. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like it's all those little process goals that go together into this little intricate puzzle that
right.
give you the results that you want, right? It's not just,
Absolutely.
oh, I'm just going to run. It's not that easy.
Exactly. And we become more and more aware of that every single day, because we see so many different types of athletes, but even in ourselves, like, I mean, I've never taken strength more seriously than I do now. And I think I want to highlight a little bit about my struggle as an aging athlete getting into strength too, because there's, for somebody that's not truly their passion, the strength training part of it, it is hard to make yourself do it. And then for a long time I would tell myself, I'm too sore after one session, no matter how light it is. Like I can run 100 miles in a mountain, no problem. But if you give me a strength training program with isolated muscle movements, I can't walk the rest of the week. So what I've done is I would take your plans and I would do like a very few reps, just body weight, and slowly work my way up. So I've got a good thing going now. But I totally understand the frustration if that is you as well. Like you can run forever and you're really strong in maybe that one specific quad muscle, but maybe the hamstrings need work or whatever it is, and you're incredibly sore going into a run. But just stick with it. It does take a couple weeks, and now I can actually add weight. I'm doing much better. So I can completely relate if this is a struggle area for you, no matter what age.
Yeah, and I love that tip because when we start a strength training program and we put it in, everybody's like all in and they want to
Right.
do everything. And sometimes they get a little overzealous, and then you're like you said, you can't move.
You can't move.
Sets in, and it's not fun.
No, and then you can't run. So it is the running then becomes, a painful experience. So there is a way to, and just be open and honest with your coach or with yourself. And if you need to just do body weight, if you just need to decrease the reps, do that. And then just be honest with yourself and your coach if you do have one.
Right, right. Definitely. Don't let your ego overtake because
Mhm.
the biggest thing is we're using this for injury prevention. We don't want to be injured.
Exactly.
Miserable, right? So we might have to slowly baby step ourselves in. We get athletes coming in at all different levels of that, right? Some
Absolutely.
never done anything with strength training, and some that are very experienced, and then
Yeah.
those in between. And so, and regardless, when you're starting to learn new movements, it's always nice to kind of take a step back and make sure you have really good form before
Mhm.
you move forward with doing progressive overload. I love
Right.
it when my athletes send me videos of their strength training so I can help with their form. It's
Right.
of an athlete that's been really, really working hard on her heavy strength with deadlifts and back squats. So I get a lot of videos, and we've been working through it. We've done some FaceTime calls, and also, just kind of walking her through. And each time, I'm starting to see progress. And the thing is that her running is, doing great too. Like it's a huge bump in her training because she's
Right.
dedicating this time to strength. What I like to tell athletes, like strength year round, but I also like to periodize it with
Yeah.
your training. So the strength training plans that Dr. Lisa and I have put into our coaching program are periodized for athletes depending on where they are in season. So when we're
Right.
really heavy and more focused on strength training, we really do that when it's that transition season or off season, so that we can really focus on that. The volume of our running might be down a little bit, our intensity of our running might be down a little bit, and so that's when we really have that more specific focus on strength training.
Right.
And then it kind of changes. We want to be really strong double
Yeah.
legged, and then we want to move to being really strong single legged, because when we're running, we're on one leg or the other. So we want to have as much asymmetrical, strength as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's huge for me too. I really, it's funny, if you give me a preference, I actually love the single leg stuff because that's where I feel, I mean, my balance is off, when you start like that. I feel like that's where you can kind of really feel where your weaknesses are. So once you do get to that point, that's actually kind of fun to see, like, oh, and then it's incredible how quickly you can progress and your balance does get better and your strength does get better on that single leg. And I mean, how many times do we hear an athlete say, oh, my right hip is bothering me, or it's always my right hip, or it's always my left ankle. And that's where you can clearly see the imbalance. But if you're, working on each single leg, that is a huge benefit to having a structured training plan, is like really focusing in on these little things that really do matter as we age, but for anybody.
Right, absolutely. And then another piece, like when we're thinking about longevity in the sport and in life, balance is a huge indicator,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times what happens is our balance is starting to decline because our mobility is declining. And then we take a fall and we hurt our hip, break our hip, whatever. That's what happens as we age. And then it's hard to recover from that, right? So if we can do
Oh,
these, prevent that and to mitigate that loss, we're going to be a lot healthier and stronger as we age into our 70s and our 80s, and beyond.
yes, and have a really long, healthy life. I mean, my grandmother was notorious for just stepping wrong and breaking something. So if we can avoid that, I mean, I hope as a society, but it's especially runners, we're leading the way,
Yeah,
that doesn't have to be the end of your life. The brittle breaking bones, every time you step off a curb, it can really be, aging somewhat gracefully, and having that really strong bone density and muscle coordination and balance is of course a huge key in that.
absolutely. And then the other piece that I like to put in is that multi-directional movement.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving in different planes multi-directionally so that we can give another type of impact to your bone so that you can increase your bone density, right? So if you can do that with heavy strength, with jumping, and with multi-directional activities, that's going to help us lay down more bones so we can have stronger bones, so we don't get into the area of osteopenia or osteoporosis.
Right.
That is something that we can improve through those avenues. It takes hard work.
It does take hard work, and it does take a conscious effort to put that effort in every day. But I think we need to start looking at our strength training and our mobility work as just as important as the run, arguably more important, because if you can't master basic foundational things, your running is gonna be way subpar for what you could be doing. So I think that we need to just make sure that we're taking the time, making it an importance, and especially as we age, it is just key in making sure that we are doing it in a way that we can stay injury free.
Yeah, definitely. Just make it part of the routine. And
Mm-hmm.
we're all busy, right? So a lot of our strength training plans aren't really long. We
No,
have to be in the gym for hours.
no, thank goodness.
A little dose a couple times, 2 to 3 to 4 times a week. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what's going to get you the benefit that you need. If you're thinking about getting the most bang for your buck, that is, using a program that's structured, that's periodized, and that uses progressive overload. That's where you're going to get, the most out of your strength training. And so, yeah.
Yes. And I'm super grateful that you guys have kind of laid the blueprint for us coaches as well as athletes too, because like I said, I use it as well, and it's really, really beneficial. So thank you.
I was so excited when you started using that.
Yeah. I'm telling you, everybody knows how much I dislike strength training. So everyone's always like, how's the strength training going? I'm like, it's going, I promise.
Athletes that start like that, like I hate strength training, but then start doing it, and then they're like, "Hey, this isn't so bad. I sort of enjoy it." So maybe if you hate strength training, maybe revisit it, because maybe it's
Yeah.
just the format that you have done it in the past, right? Or
I,
the way it was drilled in, it wasn't as fun, and now, you're on your own to do it.
and I think that where that comes from too is none of us like doing things that we're not good at. So that's a lot of times why people hate running in quotation marks, is they're not good at it yet, and we all kind of struggle with things that we're not good at. So I think you just have to stick with it a little bit, and then the joy does come.
So, we've talked about physiological, and then we've touched on that injury prevention, the strength, which is so important. I think that another piece of the puzzle, it becomes nutrition. So,
Yeah.
especially again, we should be eating well our whole life, but sometimes we sort of let that go on the side when we're in our 20s, maybe even our
Yeah.
30s. And we start really realizing how
Right.
important nutrition is, because our body composition starts to change, our energy levels change, all of those pieces. So
Right.
One of the big pieces that I like to talk with athletes about is protein and making sure that they're getting enough protein
Mhm.
to meet the needs of their training, not just protein, all, all areas
Right.
of macros, but it's, protein seems to be a big piece for helping with that body composition as well. And the timing of that is so important, especially as we age, especially for women, like within 30 minutes after workout, we need to be taking in some sort of nutrition to
Right.
with the recovery process. So I think those are things that, you know, it seems like eating protein becomes your job.
Yes.
Things we didn't think about before. We're like, oh, now
I
we.
have. Yes, I definitely struggle with this too. I don't eat meat. I'm a pescatarian, so I eat fish. So I have to like look a little bit harder for the protein sources, but they're there. So if you're vegan, if you are pescatarian or vegetarian, just you might have to get a little creative or work with one of our fantastic nutritionists. But definitely, I mean, I'm starting my day like, okay, here come the eggs, here come, and I'm someone that doesn't like I'm kind of like a one big meal type of person a day, and I think that just becomes so bad for you overall, especially if you're training. So yes, it does become a full-time job, especially of us that go into a work as well. I'm constantly like, okay, this has protein, this has protein, trying to figure it out. But it really does help with the overall body composition and making sure you're recovering and making sure that your body has enough to demand or what we demand of it, like it needs to perform in that the easiest way to do that is through proteins.
Right, absolutely. And then just thinking about fueling around your training as well,
Mm-hmm.
refueling, of course, fueling within our workouts and then after. Those are just such important times for recovery. I feel
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people will say, I had a really bad run, and then we start talking about it, and they hadn't had anything to eat, before.
Mm-hmm.
And so
A
then,
telltale sign.
that's hard, right? Because now we're asking our body to do all of this work and we're not giving it any gas.
Right. And I think there was such a trendy thing of like fasted cardio for a while. And I'm sure that there, is some scientific benefits. I haven't done much diving into it. But as a runner, I think we just really need to stress the importance of what we're asking it to do for anybody. Like we're asking, especially like in these structured workouts, it might be like a speed workout, and you can't get up to these speeds or these efforts in your heart rate without any sort of fuel. Like it doesn't make any sense. And then on the recovery end, if you just forget about taking in any sort of calories or protein on the backside of things, you can't expect that workout's going to benefit you or that you're going to be ready for the next day's workout. It's not going to happen.
Right. Our body needs fuel so that it can right. We're asking
Yeah.
our body to do a lot. And that's a thing I have to remind athletes too. Like when they start coaching, and especially when they're going for some really big distance goals like the 100, their life is changing. They're doing a lot more training probably than they ever have. Their volume is increased, maybe the intensity they've added in strength training. And then it's like, okay, you need to check yourself. What are you doing for nutrition? Are you
Yeah.
supporting your body with nutrition that you need for all of the training that you're doing? Why are you tired in the middle of the day? Is it because you need a snack? Is like what piece is missing there? And that's my indicator. So I'm very bad on getting in enough calories. So it's a struggle for me. And for the
Mhm.
longest, it's like, well, because I don't feel hungry. Well, I started realizing that I don't necessarily, maybe my stomach doesn't necessarily growl, but I start getting tired. And it's like,
Right.
why am I so tired? Oh, well, when is the last time that you ate? Right. And that's my indicator. If I start to feel tired, I probably need to get some food in.
Yeah, I was just having that conversation with an athlete about during their 100. I was like, they're like, what can I do to prevent the sleepiness? And I'm like, number one thing is you've got to eat, you've got to fuel. 9 times out of 10, that sleepiness is probably can be remedied with some calories. I mean, if you think about not running and just in your day to day, that tiredness you feel if you have a bite to eat, it's an immediate pick me up. So think about that during your race too, to prevent that sleepiness. But also, once you do, if you do happen to get there, calories are a great source of energy. I mean, calories are energy, so it makes total sense.
Absolutely. So I think the next thing to think about is training adjustments, considerations, as we
Mhm.
are aging, maybe we're not able to maintain, 6 days a week of running or,
Mhm.
for some people, maybe that's something that you need to, think about. Maybe you need a couple of extra rest days when we're thinking about especially females and menopause and perimenopause and cortisol levels and maintaining that they're not spiking so much that, we're really not being productive in our training. I have athletes that really are very in tune with their body, and they're using devices like the Aura Ring, or maybe they're Garmin watch to, kind of track your HRV and your resting heart rate, and so that you can kind of use some of those indicators to help guide your training too. Like, maybe I need a break. I
Right.
and also I think a huge piece, that I say this to all athletes, is listening to our body. So
Mhm.
important is, becoming in tune with your body and listening to it. And when you need to rest. Sometimes
Yeah.
pushing when doing the workout isn't the right answer.
Right. I deal with that probably daily when I'm checking in with my athletes. I do like a 3 week build and a 1 week reset, like most of us coaches do, but sometimes that rest needs to come earlier. Sometimes it's a 2 week build and we need to rest after that, because as we do age, of course, you might just need a little extra rest. You might need a little extra recovery. Or if you're running 5 days a week, maybe we need to take it down to four, and get rid of something for that week or two and allow the body a little bit more time to recover. Because as you age, and my dad has always told me this and it stuck with me, and he told me this like 10 years ago. He said he can do everything he could do in his 20s, but the recovery time is at least twice as long.
Yes, we should
Yeah,
have fun.
I know, yes, and in the injuries. So I try and remember that too, even with myself. It's like sometimes maybe that strength work or the speed workout that you did, a year ago, even, where you could just continue on and go, uh, might not be beneficial for, a year later. Maybe your body's changed. Maybe you've
Right.
struggled a little bit on other areas. Maybe you need a little bit more recovery after that speed workout. So that's something that I try and really tailor to each person. If a speed session or let's say a long run is really taking it out of you, then maybe we make sure to not. And that's also backing this up. That's also important in coaching. Why we don't really want you to move things around is because we've thought about this.
Mhm.
We've thought about why you shouldn't be doing an explosive high cardio workout right before a long run. For most people, that's just not going to be beneficial, especially in the recovery process. So any athletes listening, we understand life gets in the way, but completely changing around your schedule is something that we've actually put in a lot of thought in why things need to go where that they need to go. So please be aware of that too.
I spend time, I have athletes that, need to move things around during the week. And I love it when they ask me, and
Mm-hmm.
I can work on it and, make a plan that works for them. Because it's okay
Right.
to move things around. Life happens. Maybe we
Mm-hmm.
need more recovery. And I really, I guess, people shouldn't feel bad if they have to miss a workout because
Mm-hmm.
they're feeling tired. They're listening to
Right.
the body. Sometimes that's what we need, right?
Right.
As a coach, we don't know how you're feeling unless you tell us.
Yeah. Unless you tell us.
Yeah, it's really nice when we have those athletes that have those open conversations about how they're feeling, so that we can also adjust the training plan to work for you. Like you said, a standard way is to do 3 weeks on and 1 week deload. But that doesn't work for everyone, right? And
Yeah.
as I'm working with more people in the perimenopause and menopause range, especially with strength training, we're moving towards more of a 2 week of heavy strength and then a week deload for
Mm-hmm.
recovery. And we're seeing that, that week of recovery is good. It's helping to build your muscles, and it's also, getting you recovered for that following week, so we can stay working really heavy, because we want to push ourselves hard, not just in the middle, because that's
Right.
not what's doing as much benefit for us. um,
Right.
I find that happens to some of my athletes. So it's always nice. I always work with athletes to see, like, how are you feeling? So I
Yeah.
know they need a deload, because some people need it every other week. Some people
Right.
need third week, and some people can do it every fourth week. I mean, it's just
Right.
just depends on each individual person. I think that's what's great about having a coach, to be able to help figure that out for you.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, the thing is, oh, I can just get a training plan online, but you really can't, because everything is so individualized. And even a normal, let's say 16 or 20 week training plan for a marathon might be great for a 25-year-old. But if you're 50, if you're 60, and you're just, starting out, these things do take a little bit longer as we do age, but it doesn't mean that your goals have to change. We just might need to take things a little slower, have the more of the deloading weeks. and really listen to how we're feeling. So please be honest with your coach and with yourself. If I ask you how you're feeling, please be honest with me always. And it's really helpful for us. I want to see everybody succeed.
Right, absolutely. So I think, having a bit of flexibility in training plans is really huge.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely as we age. Another piece to add in that some people like to do is cross training so that they
Mm-hmm.
still get of the benefit of the aerobic capacity building with cycling versus having the impact of running. And that I find that is a nice way for some people to blend in to be able to maintain
Mm-hmm.
as many days of training as they'd like to by kind of mixing things up.
Yes, and I love that too because a lot of my athletes do love to bike and they love to swim, and it's also like a piece of joy for them too. So it is a great way to keep up the muscle building and the cardio, but not have such a high impact on whatever is bothering them. And I think that that's really helpful.
I think so too. So I think the last piece that I'm thinking about is mental aspects of aging. There's misconceptions out there. We mentioned earlier about you're going to have bad knees. Other things might be that your performance is going to completely decline. Running is too hard on our bodies. I can't
Yeah.
muscle after 50. It's too late to start running.
Mhm.
All of those things. Um, I would beg to differ, right? I say
Yeah.
that is just a number. you know,
Yeah.
if we're putting all the pieces together in the puzzle to keep you healthy, keep you injury free, there's no reason you can't be running until you're 100 and
Absolutely.
strength training as well. So I think I want to put those aside and say, don't listen to those.
Hmm.
Break those
And
barriers.
no, please don't listen to those. And a lot of times it kind of goes without saying too, like if we don't feel good, if you're going through perimenopause or menopause, if you don't feel good, you don't feel like putting that effort into yourself and putting into the training. And that goes with anything on aging. If you kind of get frustrated mentally with, oh, this is taking longer, or I'm having more issues with certain muscle groups or anything like that, then it is a little bit harder to want to put in the effort. Like it seems like a really big puzzle piece, but stay in it, stay encouraged, and just really work on everything matters. The nutrition piece matters, the strength training matters, the mindset really matters. And you really need to be working with your coach one-on-one and how can I get through this? How can I get through feeling these hormonal changes? How can I get through maybe not sleeping as well as you once used to? And get with someone that really has been through it or that knows exactly how to help you through it. And I think any stage of life that we go through it, lots of things are really difficult. And as we age, I think keeping that mindset really positive is going to be key, so that you can really focus in on doing these little things that all matter. Just because you can't, maybe you're not feeling your best to do the run that day. Maybe you can do the strength. Maybe you can make sure that you're eating enough protein, and maybe you can work on your mindset shift. And I think all of these little puzzle pieces really do help the aging athlete.
I think so too. And I think maybe changing your goals can be something
Mm-hmm.
that maybe you want to reset those. Maybe it's I'm going to really focus on the process goals that are missing link to my puzzle, right? Maybe it's
Right.
mobility, maybe it's strength, maybe it's nutrition, maybe it's not getting enough sleep or too much stress.
Mm-hmm.
There's other pieces that we can work on that can help make that possible for you, right? If we
Right.
just keep going as is and pushing forward, it might not be working so well. So if kind
Yeah.
of chance and reflect and look at what goals do I really want to set for myself. I had an
Mm-hmm.
athlete probably within the last year or so, she was kind of getting discouraged,
Mm-hmm.
and probably in perimenopause, feeling like she was just getting slower, not
Yeah.
faster. Her body composition was changing. I think she was ready to be done. She just
Yeah.
like, I'm just not getting the goals that I want. And it's interesting because now, we really looked at her training and we thought like, okay, what's good? Also having some children, like
Yeah.
children and keeping up with them and just not working in her schedule, all of those things. And so we really took a close look at what are her goals and how can we change those. And now she absolutely is so inspired and is on.
Oh, good.
So I'd like to read a couple of her statements that
Yeah.
with text. It's really was exciting to get these, and of course I have permission from her to share them. But
Yes.
she said, I looked at my half PR. I did the comparison to today's run in 2018. This shows that age is just a number. 7 years older and I am stronger. It's crazy how much I've improved. I'm very curious how much faster I can be. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's
Oh,
huge right there. I mean, like, oh, to compare to a year ago when she was just kind of like, I feel like she was like,
yeah.
I'm done, and we just changed things up, and she changed her goals, and she's crushing it. Another
Oh,
big piece is she really embraced strength training, and I
right.
believe that has resulted in those faster times from 7 years ago, right? So
I love
yeah, she says, I'm celebrating my birthday early, deadlift 160 pounds. 160 pounds, that's
that.
huge. Exceeded my body weight and goal. Yes. Yes. 48, I come. Thank you so much for the training, has changed my life. Can't believe it, but I feel like I should have it 20. Thank you. Goal, goal met, like all other goals, I want to lift more. So
Oh,
those
love it.
are so inspiring for me as a coach. And I just love to see how passionate she is and how great it's, going and how much it's changed her life.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I will share that too with a couple of my aging athletes. Like you can get through it and you can see the other side and be stronger than you were 10 years ago. But that does, you might have to change those short-term goals and even those long-term goals, but start small and let's start ticking off those goals that you do have and really work on the strength training piece and that can totally be your outcome too. I love that.
I do too. And I guess, I mean, for me, it's like just never give up.
Mm-hmm.
Number age is just a number. We're seeing all kinds of elite athletes breaking great age barriers,
My gosh, I can name them all day.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's super exciting.
I love that.
So is there anything else that we've missed with the topic today that you'd like to make sure we talk about?
I think I mean, we could go on and on and on and share like individual stories of athletes that we coach in little instances like that. But I just really want to emphasize that you can do these things. These people that you read about are not some anomalies or some super crazy superstars. They are just put in the work every single day. And it goes, I mean, all of the records that are being broken right now are all from people in their mid to late 40s. And I'm really excited to see what they do in the future too. But these people are just people that have really worked really hard to figure out how to make themselves the best that they can. So whether the best that you can is just running a 10K as a PR or as a goal in general, let's do it. Let's really figure out how to get you from point A to point B and just let's stay focused every day and make these little individual choices.
Yes, absolutely. And one piece I think I want to share before we move forward is also find yourself a community. There are
Yeah.
other people that are going through the same thing that you are that can be there to
Yes.
support you and pull you through every day.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I'm so excited we had this conversation because it's been one that we face daily with every single person that we do coach. I mean, we're all aging every single day where our cells are doing their thing. And we just want to make sure that we're helping our body out the best way that we can.
Absolutely. So, what about this or that?
Yes, this or that. Okay. So do you want to go first or me?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll grab my stuff. So I have a this or that. So are you a handheld bottle person? Or are you a vest person? And for me, I'm a little bit of both, but if I have to choose, I'm going handheld. I love just the freedom that it gives one of my hands, and then also I don't like the constriction of the vest, and I like having the option of changing what I drink every so often, a little bit easier. And for me, it just kind of feels like part of my body now. So it just kind of feels more one with me. And especially on a flat ground, if I'm running flat, putting on a vest just feels like it's weighing me down. So if I have to choose, I'm going handheld. But on the flip side, if I'm on a mountain race, you got to use the vest, more capacity. And on that end, I do like to have my hands free in case of a trip or something like that.
Right, absolutely. So when I first started in Ultra, I felt like I had to use the vest, right?
Yeah,
Like everybody's wearing a vest. And so I started out with vests, but then I learned that, you know what? Yeah, I don't really need a vest. A lot of the aid stations are pretty close together. And of course, I
yeah,
do a lot of track events too. So I
right.
also like to go handheld. Track events are going to be a little smaller handheld versus the bigger handheld. And the other
Right.
thing I like about my handheld is the little pocket because I mentioned before in the show that I like the untapped gel.
Yeah,
I put it in my pouch here, and I'm able to drink or sip on gel all in one hand. And
Perfect.
I I love that. It just makes it easy and convenient. Just like you, the vest weighs me down. It makes me really hot, and I already go back to aging. I already have enough hot issues. Another addition. So if I can get by without a vest, I will. Now there are times when I'm doing something longer that I need a vest because there's going to be a longer segment without people.
Mhm.
I think during my FKT across Michigan, which was over 200 miles, there was some vest wearing at times
Yeah.
to be able to hold some stuff. But
And I do think it's important too, while we're speaking on these vest versus handheld. If your race, you're going to have to wear a vest, you better be training with it. You can't put it on race day and expect everything to go smoothly. Like, you got to definitely practice how you play.
exactly. Same way with the water bottle. If you go
Mhm.
out and decide you're going to hand carry, make sure you've been practicing because you're using muscles. Sometimes, Lisa and I've had this conversation about how it impacts your
Yeah.
mechanics by holding. So, like, okay, if I like to hold with my right hand, well, you need to
Mhm.
also try with your left hand so you can keep things sort of
Oh,
balanced.
I have to practice. I'm a left hand holder, and if I put it in my right, it somehow sneaks into my left. So I have to practice that as well.
Oh, that's great.
Perfect.
And
Okay, so I think that wraps up today's episode of The Dirt.
we hope you found our discussion about aging athletes insightful and helpful along the way in your running journey.
Remember, it's all about adapting and staying motivated, no matter your age.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback will help us with all other runners.
And don't forget to follow us on social media for more tips and more updates.
Thanks for joining today. Keep running, keep thriving, and we'll catch you next time.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye.